villains, champions, leaders. If we've done tops and analyzed all of that, it was already time to go deeper into the best Pokémon characters, right? That's right. It's finally time to roll up our sleeves and try to discern my personal top of the rivals of the saga. Perhaps the characters that Pokémon has put the most effort into developing throughout its history. The ones that give us the most when it comes to analyzing them, and that give us the most simply because they are a barbarity of people. I'm going to die editing this. Let's get to work. But not before reminding the usual thing. This is not about going to Wikidex and seeing who has a higher level, but about seeing what the character put on the table, what they are trying to tell us, and what their story brings to us. There are a ton of rivals. Seriously, I didn't think there were that many. Today we'll see the ones I like the least. This is from 13 to 8, with 13 being the worst and 8 the best. And in the next part, the top 7. Also, we are going to exclude certain people like May, Brendan, Lucas, and Lyra as counterparts of the protagonist in the 4th generation games, since I believe that the minimum to consider someone a rival is that they face you at some point. Ray and Clara, I'm not sure if they fully fit the label either, but I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't played the Isle of Armor DLC, although the truth is that the characters from the outside don't look bad. Now the typical people will come saying, "Oh, what good criteria you have making tops without playing the things." Chris and Yusin, I think no one thinks of them when talking about rivals, but just in case, no way they fall into that category, and I think that's it. Oh, and as usual, only characters from the mainline video games. For now, there will be time to talk about everything. I almost feel bad for the kid who ends up being the punching bag in any video whose topic is remotely related to him. But look, he should have studied, literally. Just by having gone to the first day of Poké School, it would have been enough for him to know that if you reach champion, you put 4 moves on your Pokémon. But as a rival, he is even worse than as a champion. At least as a champion, he is doing a fake blue. Despite being the most shameless rehash in history, that your companion becomes champion before you have some interest in a pretty cool animation. But as a rival, not even that. It's not even on purpose that something more forgettable, generic, and with less grace and sense could have been done. It's that, just to not give him anything, not even the companion Pikachu or Eevee give him anything. Okay, you wanted to keep the structure of the original games without adding Blue, who was relegated to the post-game, screwing any kind of logic and temporal continuity, by the way. But well, at least give him some kind of personality, some hobby, something, please. That the most salvageable thing about the character is that he takes care of and adopts into his team the orphan Cubone from Lavender Tower. Gives an idea that despite being a good kid, his game was focused on what it was focused on. The characters were certainly not among its priorities. I'm really sorry, and it truly hurts me more than it hurts you, because years ago, I would never have imagined putting the rivals that are most nostalgic for me by far here. But they are very bad. In the video games, of course. In the anime, now she is my favorite character, and Brendan doesn't even exist. But whatever, seeing where we were coming from, and especially where we were going in the following generations, I feel that there was a big slump when it comes to rivals in this generation. May and Brendan are there. Hey, you have to admit that in one battle or another they make it very difficult. You shouldn't have a Torkoal there, girl. But beyond that, there isn't much that separates them from Trace. Being the offspring of the professor specialized precisely in the habitats of species, in a generation that gives so much importance to nature and environments, I don't know. I think they could have worked on it much more. Not only that, it's noticeable that because of their existence, they removed battles and exposure time from the rival that potentially had interesting things to contribute, harming him a lot. Because of course, you're not going to saturate the game with difficult rival battles because people get scared. In fact, I think they should have done the complete opposite. Something like in the 4th generation, since the avatar of the opposite gender is going to dedicate themselves to giving objects without contributing anything interesting. Let them be limited to that. That's how you give the development and exposure that the one who actually puts things on the table deserves. It's often said that in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, they were improved a lot. And, well, at least we get to see their final evolution. For God's sake, give them a rare candy at least. Look how cheap you are. But beyond that, unlike other characters in the game where the effort to improve is definitely noticeable, I'm not saying things change much if you give them a little more screen time. And the cinematic Under the Stars is cute, but nothing more. Maybe there are universes out there where things are different. Predictable, I know. And I feel bad about putting so many different people in the same position. My idea was that the protagonist's counterpart was a bit above, but when it comes to trying to argue why, it's fine. After the drama of the previous games in which every character that crosses your path is a sociopath or is sunk into an existential crisis, I guess it's okay that you're surrounded by slightly calmer people. Breathe now before we get intense again. But they took it a bit too far, didn't they? Once again, it seems like they really took seriously that each one should provoke the greatest possible indifference. Like May and Brendan, they simply exist, and this wouldn't bother me so much if they had 1 or 2 counted appearances as comic relief, while in parallel, a proper rival was being developed. But that rival does not exist. It's a completely deserted position in this generation, which is especially serious considering that there are 4 of them, and I think it wasn't that complicated for at least one to be somewhat up to the task. The only salvageable thing about them is their designs. They've always seemed very unique and cool to me, which, given what we've seen, is already something. But above all, and what makes them for me be a little bit above the previous ones, is that they are coherent with the game's core idea. An adventure that talks to us about the importance of bonds. 2 paths with apparently nothing to do with each other, X and Y, crossing at a meeting point that determines their lives forever. I'm a fanatic of analyzing that final message across the generation, and I think these kids, who put a lot of emphasis on friendship forever and all that, are a pretty clear manifestation of it. Which is reflected, for example, in Xiao's words the last time we see her. Every time I think about how lucky the 5 of us were to be chosen in the Kalos region, I get all sentimental. Imagine it. If not, you and I wouldn't have met, and our lives would have been. And here comes the textbook internet hater, an unbearable guy, big-headed, and going around giving lessons when he's nothing more than a newbie. And yet, as is also usual with this type of person, extremely fanboy of something. Or in this case, someone whom no one can touch or question, or he'll become extremely violent. Because I feel that many characters in this game are jabs at the Pokémon community, Bede is annoying. Yes, but that doesn't make him a bad character or rival. In fact, isn't it the opposite? Isn't this the kind of rival that spits your drink when you're not looking and spits in your face? The one that everyone was asking for when they complained about friendly rivals? Even his appearance seems meticulously designed to make you dislike him. Bro, you're a retired lady. Calm down, please. But well, I don't want to sound as much of a hater as him, because he's a character I like. In fact, if we dig a little deeper into that asshole rival profile, he's perhaps the most developed one, also justifying his blind hardcore defense of the president and his obsession with being stronger to be useful to her. A much more genuine and burning longing than, for example, Hops, hence why he improves faster and humiliates him when they battle with everything that comes after. Up to this point, he's a hell of a character, also with that old school competitive attitude of those rivals that make your blood boil and make you want to destroy them and become stronger for it. At the same time, he has a background that generates a certain empathy. So why does he end up so low then? Well, there comes a moment when that good writing is cut off dry. It's not that they do something that ruins the character or goes against his concept. No, it's that a little more and he stops existing. For me, when it comes to characters, this is the clearest case of that thing that is usually reproached to the generation of having things half done. When Rose, the only person who mattered to him, humiliates him, tramples him, It's not that he ignores him or looks down on him. It's that after doing so, he even starts praising you right in his face. It's terrible. Someone would think that such a traumatic event would have dramatic consequences in his character arc. But no, that event has no consequence, no transcendence. Then a church lady comes along and sticks him with the position of leader of a type that isn't even his, without asking him, and his character softens. But none of this has anything to do with the story of the character that was originally proposed. I mean, yes, in a way, Opal is also trusting him and giving him a bit of self-esteem. But where does everything that was being set up at the beginning go? I honestly think this kid had everything needed to be the best rival. Wally. Wally, what do we do with you? I've talked about him on more than one occasion, and I always find it very hard to get anything clear. Because first, his relationships are very different. At first glance, I know they don't seem like it. But the readings you get from one and the other are practically opposite. This is the virgin version of the remakes. Fight for your dreams, we all support you, you have a unique talent that will unleash a special power. And the Chad version of the originals. Work as hard as you want. Get whatever treatment and therapy. Fight against your family, against your illness, against your lack of talent. You keep fighting and go as far as you want. Because in the end, yes, he does have talent and will destroy you doing half the effort against, as they usually say. I liked that for once we were given real cruelty in a character who absolutely does not deserve it, because that's reality. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying you shouldn't fight for what you want. You have to give it your all, but there are many things that are not in our hands. It's a unique premise in the saga that no other character has dared to explore, and the remakes were a golden opportunity to take it further, make it even harsher, and fix the problems. But instead, they decided to make it family-friendly. For me, going against the original spirit of the character, this is the biggest problem I have with Wally, but it's not the only one. As much as he had that background, neither in the original games, nor of course in the remakes, does he properly fulfill the most basic role of a rival. He only has 2 battles, one great, yes, but the other, one lamentable. And, at least in the originals, this reinforced that idea that he was a kid without your innate talent, but it simply doesn't work. You don't see him at all throughout the game, and when it comes to motivating and contributing to the player, that's awful. So this is where the cutoff would be, because I think that from this point on, we're already talking about good rivals. Hal seems to me like a good character and a decent rival, no matter how annoying many people consider his kindness. At what point did the world become a place where being nice is a reason for hate? I don't know, but I don't think he has the personality problems of some of the previous ones, nor such serious writing errors. I understand that his attitude and high frequency of appearances can exasperate certain types of people. His teams with 2 moves in advanced stages of the game don't help either. Now, if we talk about what his story proposes, it's cool. This time his radiant personality finds balance in the darkness and Gladion, and they complement each other very, very, very well. They have great chemistry, and it makes these things much more bearable than a story in which everyone around you goes to sunflower class and suddenly a sage says he's going to blow up the world. This time, the rivals generate a very good balance, and I think the fact that they are so opposite, also in terms of their evolution, is very well thought out. Hal starts as the typical silly, carefree kid who doesn't give importance to absolutely anything, and because of that attitude, things end up happening. After that, and inspired by you, and especially by Gladion himself, his character changes, and he starts to take battles and life in general more seriously. In fact, it's precisely that dynamic of opposites and complements with Gladion that I like the most about this character. Like the moon and the sun, but we'll talk more in depth when it's time to look at Gladion. The point is that he puts very interesting things on the table, and certainly that means you can say there is an evolution in him. His big problem, which this one is a very shy one. Yes, there are details that point to the fact that he has realized his mistakes and is doing something to change and evolve. But it stays more in intention than in facts reflected in the main story. You have to admit that in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, where he manages to defeat the Elite Four and face us to see who will be the first champion of Alola, things improve. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon doing something right instead of ruining it? I can't believe it. Despite that, he drags along the same old problem with these games. Making him champion seems like a good decision to me, but if you don't change anything else about his whole story and appearances, and you just plop him there at the end, shoehorned in, well, man, but hey, I think for now, we're getting into few minefields. More or less the opinions I'm giving are being popular. Also, there's not much video left, so at least in this first part, we're not going to mess it up. Come on, today, I'm not getting canceled. Let's go with the last one, the best among the worst. Oh no, it was going so well for a top where it seemed like people weren't going to jump at my throat. Let it be clear that even though he ends up in this part of the worst and therefore in the lower part of the table, at this point we're already talking about characters that I find more than decent. And Hugh is by no means a bad rival, but I do think he was quite wasted and overhyped. Let's see if I can squeeze out a few seconds before they come to assassinate me for not putting him at least top 3. Let's start with the good things, which are not few. I really like his design. The Q-Willfish fandom was dying, and now it has a representative. He has one of the best rival battle themes, and his personality is genuinely endearing. He is bold, competitive, and makes things truly difficult in battle without becoming unpleasant or a hater like others. And when it comes to his role as a rival, in practical terms, his battles, testing you and all that, he is probably one of the best the saga has had. And he has his own story, which is already more than some can say. But it's in this last one, once again, where I have more objections. Okay, not all stories have to be dramas with spectacular twists and character arcs that completely break you. But I don't know. I feel like nothing he proposes is very interesting, let's say. The concept that his sister's purloin was stolen, and that made him go after Team Plasma is fine. It's pretty cute and original, considering that all rivals up to that point were driven by purely selfish objectives. But do you really think I care? Why should I? Rescuing a little girl's cat sounds much more like a side quest from a Naruto game than like the reason for being of one of the main characters. If at least they had stolen his own Pokémon and a story developed with it that justified that this search renews things in him, then it would have had more weight. The concept seems pretty lame to me. It feels like the first idea that popped into their heads, but the execution is even worse. That excessive hatred he has towards Team Plasma doesn't affect his character at all. It doesn't provoke any evolution or change in him, which is a complete waste when this game gives so much importance to the division that happened within the group and everything that it represents. Hugh finds out that in the group he hates, there are also good people loyal to pure and innocent ideals. Anyone would think that would affect him in some way, but his reaction is indifference. Same for the bad part of the team. When you enter the Plasma Frigate for the first time, where we face the grunts in double battles alongside him, the final bite is that he pulls out a Leopard. I said, no way, it's the purloin that was stolen from his sister. It has already evolved and is now attacking him. Finally, the game does something interesting with this. For God's sake, now the character will have the revelation we need to tie the plot together. Then they rescue the purloin and absolutely nothing happens. I think that, being as I say, a more than worthy rival, there were way too many tools to do things better, and those kinds of things always hurt me especially. They make me be more severe. Once again, the manga wiping the floor with the games when it comes to treating their own characters. But that's it for now. Next day, the conclusion with the best ones. As long as they're among the most incredible characters in the saga, smash that like and subscribe button so I rush as much as possible to finish editing and upload it. If you want to know who the strongest trainer in the history of the saga is, last week we held a tournament between the different categories. Click on the video on screen and you'll find out who the winner was.